what we're, you know, where we're at, what we're talking about. I am not an expert presenter on Zoom. I'm just going to say that right now. So forgive me for any shortcomings that will pop up. So that's not the first slide, first of all. Okay. So welcome everyone to the Decarcerate DOC collaboration meeting. And thank you, Commissioner Paul Schnell, for taking time to meet with us again. And my name is Bethany. So, as a collective organization of prisoners, families, ex-prisoners, and more, we've taken a lot of time and effort to focus on what we want to ask you this month. We are intentional about asking you things within what we think is your authority to decide and implement, and we're intentional to support you in doing so. I found this article about you, Commissioner Schnell. I don't know if you've seen it before, but it talked about how you were chosen by Governor Walz and a little bit about your background. But really, what really stuck out to me was the quote that, okay, wait. Well, you can all read the quote. But how you show up, you talk to the inmates, you listen to their concerns, and you know, you don't just, it seems to be saying something to the effect that you don't just phone it in, and that's really important. And it talks about how you have been, even the inmates have noticed a difference in your role compared to other commissioners' roles, which is great. So we appreciate that. So tonight we have some goals. We seek to leave with a commitment on the following solutions: calling in outside impartial investigators, possibly from the CDC, so that they can inspect, change, and monitor the prisoner's medical conditions. Releasing low risk and medically fragile inmates to allow for social distancing. Mutually. Oh, I'm echoing.
Whoever's on the phones, can you mute yourself until you're talking?
I can mute them. Okay, is that better? Okay. Mutually share policy and budget goals to identify areas of alignment. This year, begin partnership process to identify and implement better solutions for pre and post reentry. Address some outstanding issues, such as the TikTok guard and the videos she made, if she's faced any repercussions because of that very harmful display. Victim designation, visitation committee, and to establish a joint stakeholder policy review committee. Oops, sorry. So we've had many meetings about requests, but we haven't really witnessed much progress because, you know, it seems like we've had a lot of these meetings and people have asked for things, but it doesn't seem like they're always implemented. So we're feeling a little bit frustrated, not only with the system, but with ourselves too. Perhaps we're not communicating in a more effective way. So that's one of our goals. We agree on your administration has been more humane, has more humane goals than most, but it seems there's been kind of a consensus in IWOC and Decarcerate that we're being met with defensiveness when discussing basic changes and lack of transparency on how to achieve joint goals, including separating rather than convening stakeholders. Defensiveness is, you know, unproductive. It doesn't make change for our loved ones or change the system. So the reality is that you and the governor have significant power to ensure compassion and equity for all inmates in Minnesota and to set the example for all involved to follow suit. And in the past, you've expressed that we are asking unrealistic requests, and we've been working on this, and we welcome your feedback. We need to work together to make sure we're all working towards realistic goals that really can be implemented. So we imagine you may be feeling similar frustrations or hopeful about some things, and we're just wondering, do you feel this too, Commissioner Schnell?
Yeah, there's no doubt that I think we all feel a level of frustration on a variety of levels, without a doubt. I feel frustrated and, you know, and concerned at the same time.
Okay. Thank you.
And that speaks to Mr. Schnell, that speaks to like basic communications between our collaboration. For example, how do you feel about data that we share when you invite us to collaborate with somebody and we say, hey, you have the data in your pocket, can we see it? What do you think about that and the strategies as far as going forward with something like that?
So I think you've gotten data on when it's been requested. You know, so I don't have any problem with that.
Okay.
The data is the data, and we should, you know, we'll share it, and we can certainly talk about the, you know, what it means and how we address it. I have no issue with that at all.
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
Bethany.
that's okay. At the end of this meeting, we will check in to make sure that our requests are realistic and how we can partner with you in implementing them. So you'll see this slide come up again at the end of the meeting so that we can just make sure we're all on the same page and we all feel like we're leaving with realistic goals. And like I said, we all, you know, I always say when we vote for representatives, when we vote for leadership, we can't just cast our vote and think our job is done. Our job as citizens is to support our representatives and leaders in doing their jobs. So I was kind of joking with everyone the other day. I said it's kind of a Jerry Maguire situation, like help us help you. And I just want you to know that we stand in solidarity with you. You know, we want to help you. You know, we want success, and I know you do too. And so, well, we do. We know you do too. And so that's kind of where we're standing now. So now I'd like to introduce you to Denisha and then Dino, who are going to discuss requests for medical action. So I'm going to go to the next slide.
Hello, I'm Denisha. So we'll probably have people joining in on the phone. Or is there anyone on now? And if not, we'll switch to the next item until they call, and we'll be flexible with it. So just let us know. All right, so let's get started.
I'm on.
Oh, you're here? Okay.
That's Linda.
Okay, Linda, yeah. So, okay. People are dying and there are hundreds of cases. We've been pushing for 9 months to improve conditions, and it's only getting worse. We need outside investigators to improve this situation and restore legitimacy, and we need a reduction of low risk and medically fragile prisons to mitigate the harm being done and allow for social distancing. Right now, I would like to take time to introduce Linda.
Hello, my name is Linda, and I am here talking about the MSU unit, Building 35, that has 57 inmates living all together in one open space dorm setting with beds throughout. No possible way for social distancing. The MSU unit are low risk wearing ankle bracelets. This can be done at home. Now the MS unit are living in a death trap due to one inmate got the virus and intentionally was left in the unit for 4 days among everyone before his release. The MS unit needs to be released healthy inmates to their families. And also, they need to, make the MS unit something useful like a quarantine site. or something like that, because all lives matter, and especially in this epidemic with this virus. And the DOC has failed the inmates on protecting their health. All right, and I pass it on to Wanda.
Hi, this is Wanda, the fiance of Stephen Mister, the mother of his 3 kids. I'm very concerned about the MSU unit in Stillwater, Building 35. My first concerns are there's no possible social distance in the dorm-style living quarters. I'm very scared for all the inmates and the staff forced to be living in there, knowing not if they're going to be the next one. Giving that the inmates have to take their own test, COVID-19 test, they're not getting an accurate test at all. That's why they have COVID-19 testing sites professionally done. Now it's only 57 inmates living in there, and I just asked for the commissioner to release them since they're already on house arrest, just to release them. And since they're in the minimum security prison anyway, low risk. And that's all I have to say. And I could pass it on. Right.
And thank you very much. We would like them to be released to their families healthy, and don't leave them in that death trap waiting on that disease to hit one by one. And the whole academic will be a lost cause for the MSU unit.
Not just MSU, the whole Stillwater.
Yep, the MSU unit is Stillwater, building number 35. They need to be released and go home healthy to their parents. And don't leave them there waiting. It's like a death trap. They all there in one big open space. There's no way for social distancing. They sleep like that with their beds like that in one big open space. To me, that's a death trap waiting to happen. Mm-hmm. Thank you, and I would like to pass it on.
Dino?
Yes. Thank you for that. Linda, is there so this is not back and forth Q&A or anything, because I mean what she said, is there anything going on to that anything being done to look into these cases in building 35, their living quarters, the staffing, that needs to be addressed. Let's not get away from that. I'll start off by saying I'm Dino. That is a monarch. My name is Anthony Williams. I'll just give you my full name. My OID is 207262. I just was released from the penitentiary a year ago. I did months short of 20 years, so I earned and deserve all rights to sit on a panel like this and speak to you, Commissioner, about anything that could be going on. Not only did I live on that side for more than half of my life, I still have family and friends there. I have people that I've identified with and have grown major bonds with, bonds that I've never grown with anyone else besides in those times of shackle. So I hold Oak Park Heights chapter, and making sure that we have some type of inside organization and understanding that our people in there are not alone. We will and shall fight alongside of them for whatever cause. And we want them to know that, and we definitely want you and your people to know that. With that being said, I would like to focus on the medical release and other releases that need better. All right, let's just get to the point here. We had 153 people released out of 2,331. Now, we're total lines saying that this is applied, or this is people that could have qualified for the release. But you told us back in March that between 1,200 to 1,600 people should be released under this plan. We haven't seen nowhere near that, and we're wondering why. We're not getting no answers from you or anyone else, your staff. So we need to know why. A couple of those people I know for fact that could have, and one for a fact that was on the list to be approved died now. So what's going on? I mean, these are people, and let's not get away from the fact that the people that are dying are people that have low cases and should be on their way to release in a few years. Like, they have less than 5-6 years to do. Like, they don't even have a life sentence, but they're sentenced to a death because somebody's not doing their job. We need to know what's going on in the health service department. I'm hearing a lot of BS about nurses and doctors don't even want to come to the units. No one's allowed to leave the unit, so no one's going to health service. So what's the point of a health service if nobody's getting the help they need? We need some transparency on that. We need to know what actually is going on. I don't want souped up falsity just to get me to spring into action. You know what I mean? So if mine are falsifying some things, then I want to get on top of it and let them know that I'm not doing business that way. I need direct contact and I need honesty. So if you know of some things and you know things that aren't going right, I'd like the same respect. I'm very, very well liked and known on this side and the inside, disliked as well, mostly by the guards, but that doesn't bother me.
Hello?
I personally do not trust
Dino.
the DOC. Yes, is this a call coming in?
Dino,
Yo, is this a call?
Hey, my time is
Dino.
limited. You
Dino.
gotta ask the question and get to the point so they can answer, so we can move on. I'm
No,
only out here.
he just not heard me. Just go ahead and talk, brothers.
Go ahead.
Go ahead and talk. They're on the line.
Yeah, hello.
They
Talk,
can hear you.
Pat.
Go ahead.
This is in Watkins McKenzie. I'm calling from Stillwater. My number is 155-221, and since my time is limited, I have 11 concerns, but I would just like to raise 3 concerns for you to think about and I guess deal with. The first concern is the mask that we need. We need I believe it's N95 masks or P95 masks, and I was wondering if residents could receive two of those masks, or allowed to at least order those masks from a approved vendor. My second question is that the windows in the units be mandated to be open at least twice a day to ventilate the unit. There needs to be more cleaning hours for the janitors, and stronger cleaning solutions or chemicals. I guess maybe Cavicide or bleach would work. Also, the residents in Stillwater, we need to be more provided with more yard. We've been locked in here for since like maybe 4 weeks. We had 1 day of yard. Also, I'd like to have you think about allowing us to order immune boosting vitamins and proteins through approved vendor because Mencor's out of stock. The Mencor canteen's out of stock of vitamins and teas and cough syrup and things of that nature. And maybe we could, I would like you to think about having us get that. Also, I'd like to know if it's possible for the Department of Health members from the CDC to come visit the prison and see if the protocols are being adhered to. Because I was just told from another person that last night there was an officer doing rounds late night without his mask on. So, right now it's like pretty much a lot of the guys in Beat East are they're coronavirus positive. I'd like to do something to prevent that. That's all the time I have. But those are the questions. I'd like you just to think about those. I appreciate you, and I'll wait on a response.
Yeah. Thanks, Pep. We didn't hear you chimed in before.
Is everybody still on the line, or what's going on?
Yeah, no, everybody's still on the line. One more thing.
Hey, you want to give him a chance to respond quick before Pep?
Oh yes.
Go ahead.
So let me just say that on the N95 issue, we've explored this issue. N95s require fit testing. So, we have to fit test. In fact, if you look at the data, using N95s that are not fit tested can actually have worse health outcomes. If you can mute your thing if you're not talking, that would be great. But if they're not fit tested, it actually can have worse health outcomes. So, fit testing is a significant process with that number of people. The window opening stuff, we can talk about that and look at that. We certainly, if there's an opportunity there, we can certainly do that. The cleaning stuff, we'll look. We'll have them talk about what the supply issue is. I know that there's adequate supply. We've ordered lots of it. And in terms of the strength, everything that we are using is in accordance with CDC guidelines in terms of being able to stop that. Michelle Smith will look into the issue about the teas and the vitamin stuff. If there is no mask use being addressed, report it. We will get on the cameras and find it, and we'll address it. We've been disciplining staff for not wearing masks, and so we'll address it. And so that's that's the responses to those questions. We'll find out about the vitamin stuff, and look into the windows and the cleaning supply stuff. N95s is a little different issue because of the fit test requirement.
What about the outside? I think this voicemail came in. I couldn't really hear as far as residents getting outside on at least a couple hours a day.
If we can do it, we will try and do it. Michelle has been pushing everybody to try and get people out as much as we can, whether staff allows and some of the weather stuff. Because I agree with you. Look, we if we could just have this go away. Now I think we're on the backside.
Right.
We're on the backside. We're starting to see the numbers of people, the recoveries are going.
Okay.
That's the right way to go, and we'll ultimately be able to get people out and go from there. And staff-wise, we're having people come back in. So just know, Bevy, we want to get you out. We want to get people out of there too. There's no win in this for anybody, and we'll get there.
Right. What about the question with respect to the members of the Department of Health or the CDC? I guess doing walkthroughs.
Well, so health department has been in, so they have not been into the building, but we've actually brought cameras. We brought a camera in there, live streamed from a cell phone, and looked at. And we looked. They wanted because they wanted to understand how the air system flows, and how the cells are aligned, and all that kind of stuff. So remember when we did that night. There was a night when we did some moving well into the night. That was because the health department had recommended those moves, and they felt it was something that stage was early on, and they wanted us to try and make those moves. So
Okay.
the Minnesota Department of Health epidemiology has been there, via live stream.
They
Okay,
just
thank
attended
you. Oh.
Stillwater or other facility?
We've had them in at Stillwater was the one place we've been talking about the issues in every single facility with them.
Right.
The staff we have a team that works on this stuff. They're on every single day with Minnesota Department of Health every day. We look at our positives, where they are, what units, and then we do talk about contact tracing. And go from there. So every day there's a conversation out there.
I have another concern. I think I filed I sent the kite to one of the AWs.
You have 1 minute remaining.
The response was follow the chain of command. I was wondering if there's a possibility that we could streamline that and file complaints directly with the ombudsman's office.
Yeah, but if you can sure do that. The issue is that the ombudsman's policy generally is going to be, if you haven't addressed the internal process, they're not going to open. Open the complaint. That's their.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate you talking to me and answering my questions. My time is limited. I wish I could stay, but the phone time's up, and then they're finna switch us in too. I appreciate everybody. Thank you. I gotta go.
Okay.
All right, brother.
Thank you for using GTL.
Paul, my name is Tyra. I just had one question that he was talking to you about in regards to, I have 3 relatives that are incarcerated and a family friend of 25 years, so I just consider them family as well. My question is, could you explain more about the requirement for fitted PPEs?
So when you use N95 masks, they do a fit test. There are different sizes to those masks, and so if with N95s, when I asked our medical director, I just asked this question last week: can we issue N95s to everyone? We've issued them to staff because when staff come on board, they get fit tested for those masks. And so that's what the fit test does, is to make sure that there is adequate seal in terms of the mask. And what the concern is that if it doesn't fit properly, it can actually result in people drawing it in, and you can have a bigger viral load in the mask, is what I understand it to be. And that's why they require a fit test for N95s. Okay,
and so with that being said, what is being done to address getting fitted?
So what we have done instead is issued surgical masks, which are above barrier masks, but not at the N95 level, because it's easier to do. It's much easier to manage that. And fit testing is going to take us a massive amount of time just to get through. And right now we're really struggling to keep staffing levels where they are, and we're gonna have to pull a bunch of staff just to run fit testing. So that's a chunk of, one of the issues.
Thank you for your response. I had one more question, and I'm sure there's more people that need to speak on this line directly to you, and they want to share stories. My other question was, folks are not working, is that correct?
For the most part, that's correct.
And so how are folks able to pay for anything they might need when they go to, how is that happening? I'm concerned that people are not able to make purchases and things like that.
Yeah, so are we. I think we're, because I think it really, we don't want, I know people want to be out. I know people want to be active and doing stuff and working. We would like that too, because it's never good to have people in this position. That we're trying to manage through the kind of the immediate crisis at hand and get people back. But that's really what we can do at this point in time. Again, I think right now at Stillwater, at least we anticipate that there will, we're going to see the numbers changing as we go forward. And, we are exploring all kinds of things, even things like CUI stipend and some of that kind of stuff. But that's where we are at this point in time. We have to access some dollars for that.
One more question as before we move on. You were a part of the $1.9 billion, some money to be received. Did you receive that money and how much was it?
$1.9 billion. The state did. We received probably somewhere in the vicinity of, I don't know, maybe 20 million, maybe thereabouts. Some of that went, a lot of it's to food, a lot of it's to testing. The vast majority of the money we pay right now, I think we're paying about $80 a test, $86 a test, something like that, 68. Don't quote me exactly, but and we've done about almost 90,000 tests to date. And so that's where the majority of our of this is coming from.
Awesome, thank you.
Mr. Commissioner, could you please give me a comment or a response on the MSU unit, my concerns that I expressed?
So I understand the concerns. We are at that unit is at about 50% capacity from the standpoint. I hear that distancing becomes an issue, but distancing should be less of an issue because of the fact that the population there is presently at about, what did you say, 55, I think, and I think it holds about 100. The total there is about 112. So we, from a square footage standpoint, we should be able to manage that without.
Well, they are in one open large room where they're sleeping, and most people are not sleeping with their mask on either, and the germs are just in the air. It has nowhere to go but contained in there.
Yeah.
No possible social distancing like that.
Well, I think
open space dorm.
Yeah. So there are social, there is the ability to social distance. There is no positives there at the present time. There's one person who is separated because he's being retested because there was some issues with a test. They generally are outside, get some outside time every day. And so, I think we do, there is. Now, again, we can look at, who's in that population, what kind of time people have and that kind of stuff. But it's from a social distancing standpoint, we believe that it's there.
No, well, I really don't believe it's there. One person have the disease and he has been released, but he was kept in there 4 days among everyone walking around there, knowing he had the disease. They kept him there and they released him 4 days later. And that's a known fact there at the MSU unit. He was left there in that population like that before for 4 days before.
So let me just respond to that. One, I don't believe that's the case. If there was, then what can happen, and the place where we're seeing some gap right now, and this is not a DOC problem, this is a Minnesota problem, is that when we run testings, in some cases, some of our tests are taking 4 days, 5 days to come back. And in the meantime, we don't know, right? Especially with people who are asymptomatic, which there's a lot of asymptomatic people. That's the challenge. And so, across the board, across the state, one of the major issues right now is the fact that test results are compromised from the standpoint of turnaround. And in the meantime, you get those issues.
But Commissioner,
one more thing.
these people in there are low risk.
Yes, they are low risk. My thing was with this, they have the ankle bracelets on, and they might as well come on home with that ankle bracelet because they're doing the same thing with, like they're at home. They're in and out. They have freedom there, freedom to move around off the yard, in and out the yard. They can do that at home as well.
Yeah. So there's sentences can be modified. Here's the thing. One of the things that I just want to be really clear about that, I find it a little bit intriguing, and I just would say that, you look at what happened in New Jersey recently. There was a large number of releases in the state of New Jersey. That was us that in talking to the secretary there, it was a statutory release, legislative action that prompted that and opened the doors for, 1,200 people. And so I would just say that, the push has been around focus. And again, I have one place and one person in the system. And I would just say that, remember, the people that have this massive ability just to shift and fundamentally change policy, the state's policy. This is one branch of government, and there's there's the courts, and you have the legislature as well, and we have to push on all those branches.
Why were the inmates professionally trained to give their self-tests? This is probably one of the reasons why the virus has spiked up in there. They're not medically trained to give themselves a test. No, they're not medically trained for that. But this is what they're doing, giving them. That's what they've been doing, giving their own self the test.
It is the community standard more and more. Today the state announced that you can now call and have tests mailed to your home and have them sent. That more and more testing is the community standard. When I do tests, when I've done them, they hand me I pull the swab out of the thing and I swab myself and I put it back in the tube and it gets sealed up and a label gets put on it. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening in the community, and more and more and more. And I think this is the reality of the community standard.
Okay, I understand.
Excuse me. Okay, excuse me 1 second. For the overall picture of this medical release, what are we doing towards the medical release on prisoners who are eligible and have been eligible according to 12 to 1,600 Utah's March would be released by this time.
Is that you, Dino, talking?
I think
Yeah, that's Dino talking.
Okay, just a
a
minute.
lot of people in building 35 will be some of those people that get released. So let's just get to the bigger picture.
It might work. It might work.
Dino, we're not able to. We can't hear you.
That or has been put to a halt, or are you guys mulling it? What's really going on with it? Because we're hearing nothing about it, and we're giving a lot of questions. We're questioning a lot of things about it, but nobody has any answers for us.
I can't understand. You're broken up. You're broken up. I can't understand what's being said.
Yes.
Try leaving the meeting, Dino, and coming back in.
Can you hear me?
It's really
That's
hard to
better.
hear.
Can you hear me? What's going on?
No, we're not able to.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, it seemed to work once you muted the camera. So the general question was, are you able to bring out outside sources for the testing or anything to that nature, Mr. Schnell?
So the outside sources meaning some non-VOC people, is that what you're asking?
Reasonably.
Yeah, I mean, we do. Again, Minnesota Department of Health has been in this every day with staff, every day. We consult with them every single day.
But there's not someone from MDH actually
How
administering.
come you're not consulting with the inmates?
What do you mean? How come they're not? So that because they're consulting with us in terms of what we're doing, they're not there. I mean, that's what they're doing, consulting with us to make sure that we're doing what they believe is based on the knowledge that they have at this point in time in terms of the management of this virus. That's what we're talking with them about.
All right. So I understood that when you said it the first time. What I'm trying to get you to identify with is, do you think that the inmates, their response, their input is not worthy to be asked about? Like you're asking your staff, and your staff are not giving you the full picture. I think we need all sides to this. You need to know what's going on with the people who are being affected by this as well. Because let's be real, staff are the ones who brought it in. The inmates aren't going back and forth.
So let's let us have a real conversation about this.
All right,
there's no doubt. Listen, there's no doubt that staff are bringing it in, right? Nobody's disputing that. But when you have positivity rates at the level they are today, when between today and Thanksgiving we're anticipated to have 100,000 more people positive, the bottom line here is that this is a community problem, and I'm not trying to minimize its impact on the folks that are incarcerated, but when you have this level of community positivity, what is happening today outside is affects the inside, whether it's a prison, whether it's a nursing home, whether it's a school. There is a connection between these things. And so we have been having conversations with the health department. It's not about who do we believe and that kind of stuff. It's about what is the most effective options that they've identified from a public health and epidemiological standpoint that are going to make a difference.
Mr. Chanel, we're going to have to interrupt you for a second.
Thank you for using GTL.
Simona.
Yes.
All right, I'd like you to speak with everyone about your issue with the mask. You're on the line.
So back in March, I went to medical and asked medical if they can provide me with a thinner mask so that I can breathe, because I have severe asthma, COPD, and my right lower lobe of my lung is collapsed. So they provide us with these super thick khaki masks, and then last week they gave us another mask that's super thick made out. The fabric that they got is not breathable. So I literally still have the one mask that they gave us in the beginning that is thin enough for me to breathe through. So I went to medical and asked them to provide me with masks because of my medical condition. They told me that they don't provide no masks, that I have to talk to my sergeant. So I went to Sergeant Rhodes, I've asked other guards to ask to try to get me a different mask or whatever because I can't breathe out of those ones. Nobody would give me them. So I went about cutting up one of my own gray t-shirts that I purchased off Canteen, and I made masks out of it. I put straps and everything on it because I cut the straps off the other mask. Well, I had that one gray mask for the last 9 months. No staff has ever said nothing to me. No other sergeants haven't said anything to me. No lieutenants, nobody, nothing. I only wore that mask at nighttime during med times at 8:45 to go down and go take my meds because when I go into my room at 8:45, I take off the one mask that's good enough for me to breathe out, and I would wash it and hang it up to dry. So last week, I was stopped by Officer Premier in Bacher, and he asked me, "Where'd you get that mask?" And I said, "I made it." Because I was like, I can't use no other mask because I can't breathe out of it. You guys are the only ones that ever said anything to me because everybody else that had asked me about my mask, they would say, "Oh, that's genius, good for you."
Okay, why don't you, can you give me your OID and let me take care of this? Because I'll talk to somebody about it and figure it out tomorrow. Talk to health services.
My OID number is
219? Did you say 219?
762.
Got it.
I literally have a hearing tomorrow with discipline over this because I won't run the
All right, I will take care of it. I'll talk to somebody in the morning and find out what the scoop is, and we'll see what the options are.
Thanks for your help, Simone.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for doing that, Commissioner Schnell. Thank you for promising to call in and help Simone out tomorrow. I appreciate that. So basically what you're saying is those people in the dormitory situation that you have no control over modifying their sentencing and getting more of them released on house arrest, for example? Because you brought up legislation and the branches of government, but are you saying you have no control over that, or you would have to have a ruling from a judge?
So right now, policy-wise, we would have to do policy changes. We have to see what people's release options would be. The only thing we could do would be work release on some of these people, and we have. There is significant pressure being put on us about not simply on the release side, on the other side, about our authority to modify some of these, essentially modify sentences here, and grant different kinds of work release. There has been some pushback that we've received from other components of the system, and there is concern about the exercise of that application. The other thing is that, I don't know what the, exactly how the folks that are out there would match up to the work release criteria that's been established. And that's something that we would have to look at. I know that people can be out minimum for longer than the time frame that we are currently doing work release status. So right now, that is not in the cards. We are looking at, we've asked for this, but I would just say that here's the challenge. You remember that that Unit 35 is not the only place in the DOC that is congregate or dorm settings. You can look at the CIP programs, are dorm-based, and I think here's the thing. We push on one side and it has implications in another. And what ends up happening is things like CIP can be impacted because we aren't putting people in that program because of COVID and because it's a dorm setting. If that's the basis for this decision, then we aren't going to operate CIP. And that seems contrary to the interests of the people in CIP who can save a lot of time in terms of that early release.
Okay.
So,
does anyone have a question about that specific topic, a follow-up question or anything? If you do, unmute yourself and talk. Otherwise, we're gonna move on to the next.
I would just, thanks for that, Commissioner. I would
Okay,
just-
yes, this is Linda, in reference to that. How come they just can't, do a work release from home and send them all home? Because in a dorm setting, that's right there is just all, everybody is subject to catch this virus in a dorm setting. It's just waiting to hit. And when they do, it's going to be all around right there in that dorm. It's still just an accident waiting to happen.
Who else had something to say? Just so he can get 2 questions answered at once.
Yeah, that
Someone
was me.
Hey,
That was me.
hey, I got another.
Wait, Matthew. Oh, you got another call coming in?
Well, yeah, there's a
Okay.
other really big issue at Shakopee. Can you talk about it again, Simone?
So currently, there's other units that are all locked down because of COVID and they got positive cases. So Pacific unit is the only unit that is working in food service right now. There's 7 people per shift where like you got guards talking to us crazy. You got some of the supervisors talking to us crazy. Like they're not giving us no breaks. Like we're literally busting our asses in there.
Okay, hey, I want to be clear about something. I'm not litigating these things from here, from home. This is not how it can happen. I'm not doing that. I'll address if there's something going on, run it up, but I'm not operating and running Shakopee at this very moment. So that has to, so I'm not doing this. I'm not going to participate in this conversation. So I just want to be clear about that.
Okay.
So she has to go through like the proper protocol. Is that what you're saying? Like a kite?
You communicate with the people there about what the concerns are, that kind of stuff. As a commissioner, I should not be running Shakopee facility from my house on at night like this. And so,
But what about when she complains and nobody's listening?
Okay, so here's the thing. I am not the person that this goes to, and I'm not going to do this. So the call is going to end quick, and which is not what I want to have happen. But I'm not sitting here and taking grievances in this way. I mean, I've been writing to people every single day. Kites that I've gotten, people have written to me. I've been writing back to people by personally writing back to people as much as I possibly can. And I'm not set up to address this stuff, and I'm not going to address direct complaints like this and grievances.
You seem real frustrated, man, but you ain't understanding our fucking frustrations.
I understand.
Your people are not answering nobody back and giving everybody the wrong answers.
Okay, so I mean,
so the main thing she was trying to say was that the kitchen is overstaffed or understaffed, and that it's driving them to, like she was talking about earlier, the women's legs are swelling up and they're sitting down, and then they're getting fired for sitting down and things of that nature. That was the concern.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
I'm out, man. This ain't the best place to do this.
Okay.
So, I think there's reasons for frustrations on both of these sides. Commissioner, I understand you don't want to be getting every grievance to the top, and also you're on top of a system that tends to cover up all the grievances all the way up to the top, and that puts people in a complicated situation.
I don't even know how I'm supposed to respond to that, David, because
all that to say, like, I understand why you're frustrated with that, right? And I also obviously understand why people in prison are also frustrated with feeling like they have no way of appealing up because they feel like it constantly gets blocked off. So I think there's a mutual problem here, and there's an accountability problem here that eventually needs to be addressed. That said, I actually wanted to bring us to the point you brought up about work release, and having people push back on that, because I agree with you very strongly that that's kind of the only avenue for some of these low risk folks to be released. And obviously not every single one of them might qualify for that, but a large swath of them probably would. if work release was extended. So you said you were getting pushback on following the kind of work release statute. And I guess I'm just wondering if there's any way we can be helpful in providing a counterweight on that, if there's something we can do there. And if so, what that is.
I mean, I think what work release has been not well understood by the system, and for some people had no idea that work release was even an option until COVID hit. And so what ends up happening is now we have judges and we have prosecutors that are concerned about the essentially the alteration of people's sentences. And especially when we're doing direct release home. I mean, it's one thing when you're out using halfway houses and those sorts of things. It has become an issue, and then we have X amount of resources to provide the supervision side of this, and that is also an issue that you know we need to be able to make sure that we have staff that are responsive and responsible for those people that have been issued serving their sentence in the community and work release. And we don't have unlimited capacity to be able to provide that level of check-in and supervision as it sits today.
Is there any way that supervision could be spread across counties?
We have had that conversation with the counties, and there, you know, we have what, about 150 or so extra people that are out right now with unconditional medical release. That supervision was sent out to the counties, and we, you know, the challenge for them is caseload sizes. That's one of the things that we are checking with on this, is what would it take and what's the efficacy of doing this. So that conversation is underway, and we're going to have conversations with health department about just some of that, and then looking at what our resource options are in terms of these releases for work release, and what our capacity is to be able to manage the people that are out in halfway houses, and then the added number of people that we could put out in a community-based work release.
Have you received any approval from the governor to expedite the efficacy process at all?
There's some concerns about, I mean, the governor's approval is really probably less the issue. There are some concerns about just the separations of separation of power stuff in terms of the, you know, these are court issued sentences. And so there has to be some level of separation. So the governor, you know, I think the concern is that you do higher level executive orders, and the executive
Department of the Justice System. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said, I'm hearing that, you know, that it's sounding like we probably need to be, along with you, at a justice hearing with the Sentencing Guidelines Committee.
Sentencing guidelines is one place. I think it's really right now, you know, the legislature, they came back today. They're going to be back again next month. They're going to be back every month now. And, you know, could we get them to act on something and, you know, issue releases? Again, if they want to, New Jersey, you know, just did a wide scale release of people and moved them onto supervision. And that's that from a public policy standpoint. The legislature has that authority.
What scale releases did they release? What are you talking about? What type
they did
of
about 1,200. They did about 1,200. They're a much bigger system.
Underneath what? Underneath the CMR release?
No, they just granted because the legislature can do it. They can do whatever they want. They can change and they can say, release everybody that's within 12 months or 8 months or 9 or whatever they want. They could do that and apply that retroactively. So, you know, that could be done. And that's, you know,
So the
Snell.
legislature could do that and it wouldn't move on to the Senate for approval. It would just be
Yeah.
the legislature.
no, it would be both branches of the legislature, the House and the
Yeah,
Senate.
that's the problem.
Mr. Mr. Schnell, my name is Angela Jackson, and I'm here at Shakopee, and I have something to address to you. I asked the officer, could I be out of my room to make this phone call to you, because right now it's not my time to come out of my room, but he let me make this phone call. I want to read something to you real quick, and I understand you can only do so much, but it says, first, I want to say thank you for this time, Mr. Schnell, to address my deepest concerns and my opinions on this epidemic here at Shakopee and this pandemic of COVID-19. I'm a voice to the people that'll be greatly and highly affected if you refuse to go over the CMR applications again to release people with underlying health conditions such as HIV and AIDS, hepatitis C, heart disease, lupus, asthma, cancer, coming down and in contact with this highly contagious virus can be deadly to people that have these issues, sir. People of color like Blacks, Natives, Asians, Latinas are 3 times likely to catch COVID and 2 times higher to die from COVID-19. This deadly virus don't only affect my brown sisters and brothers, it also affects my white sisters and brothers at an alarming rate also. This being said, when we, the people under your care, applied for the CMR program, only 209 people were approved. That's an approval rate of 8.6%, but only 151 people got to be released. That's a rate of 6.3%. We the people filled out them CMR applications by the thousands, and we feel that people like me that have HIV with asthma and COPD and women of color fit the qualifications but was denied. My out date is 8/22/2024. I'm 44 years old and I can leave for work release August 22nd, 2023, which is in 33 months. A lot of us got denied like this here at Shakopee with the same situation. Today, we the people are please asking you, Mr. Schnell, can you go over them CMR applications that got denied? The traditional medical release is not helping us that have high-risk health issues. Basically, the traditional medical release is looking over all high-risk people that should be able to join this medical release program. Thank you so much for listening to me. What I have a concern with is you got to bear with me, Mr. Schnell. You talk about the safety of people here, the women at Shakopee and other DOC prisons. How they're not trying to focus in on our safety here. Staff are still wearing their masks improperly. The women are still wearing their masks improperly here. When you address it, we still get treated with disrespect. For instance, today, Officer Bird, Sergeant Niawamu, when you ask them, why aren't these officers wearing their masks correctly? I got treated with disrespect today. If I follow the chain of command, I don't want to be a target, so I don't say nothing about it. It's very uncomfortable. I have underlying health conditions. I had to fight tooth and nail for me to get placed in a single room here so I can social distance myself. Another thing is they're not enforcing this here. So how can we be safe and stop the spread when they're still not following this? You got people coming in from people that are contracted coming here, not even wearing their mask appropriate. Today I witnessed it myself. And that being said, that's not safe for us. This stuff is spreading in here, and I feel that them CMR applications really should be looked over. And we should be able to get an opportunity to leave here that people that have high risk complications, if we was to contract this highly contagious virus. And it's like we got looked upon when them other CMR applications got done here. And I'm not trying to play the race card game right now, but a lot of them women that left here were white women. Only one African American woman got released here. That was Angela Hooks, and 3 Native women. The rest were white women. And I feel that was a racial disparity that was going on here. And when do we find out to determine that we don't pose a threat to the public? I feel that was a question that was
let me address this.
us.
Let me address this because I just want to stop it because I want to, first of all, if the determination was made that the CMR was not granted, I made that decision personally. And so I take full responsibility for that. These are not easy decisions to make. Public safety does not mean that somebody is like an imminent danger to somebody, but it is the fullest sense of what that ends up being about. Remember that that statute was being applied prospectively, which is very different than the way the intent of that statute. This again was one of those areas where there was massive amounts of pushback and threats of legal action against the agency, even by parts of the system, about the fact that we were applying this law the way it's been applied. And so I recognize the fact that there are people who have really difficult situations. The CMR statute was never intended to be to give the commissioner the authority to alter a person's sentence, and it was intended rather to address those circumstances most commonly where people are at end of life, so that's the challenging part about this. I'm sorry that you're in this position, and I don't know any details. I would just say that when you look at the overall release numbers, I didn't look at the gender stuff specifically, but I can tell you that I was very thoughtful about things like I did not want there to be any racial disparities, as gender disparities, as much as I could possibly do when it came to reviewing those things. We're mindful of that and intentional about it. And I think the data generally supports that. We've tried to be mindful of that. As for the mask stuff, we will look. I'll look at it. I'm not going to respond to all the detailed stuff. I will ask the warden. I will contact the warden tomorrow and talk about it. But again, I think it's inappropriate for me to be addressing grievances about facility operation stuff in calls like this. I'll talk about the CMR decisions, the things that I'm responsible for. I'll talk about that, but I don't think it's appropriate to be addressing that.
Yes. So are you gonna go over these CMR applications again to see if some of us can qualify? Like I have 33 months left to where I can apply for work release, and like we're coming up on our outdates. We're not here for a life sentence, and a lot of us did programming here that got denied, and we're trying our best to be abiding people, human beings here, and we all have our struggles inside of this place, and trying to work on ourselves and focus on ourselves here. And at the same time, we're not getting a chance to even try to keep ourselves safe when the system is not trying to help us keep us safe. We're steadily in these women are steadily in these double rooms here. The capacity for the bed space at the hospitals are at 97% capacity right now. So how can we guarantee?
I do, and I appreciate this. The answer to your question is that right now there is no intention of doing re-reviews of CMR. We've opened up a level of CMR where there is rare instances where a medical provider, the physician would say, look, the condition of this person is such that there's degradation in their general medical condition. And that in combination with with COVID stuff is something that we are going to begin re-looking at some of the CMR cases, but it's really a physician, a medical provider determination.
Okay, so
Okay, like
just to follow up on her question, Mr. Chanel, just to follow up on her question, is there a way that if someone is denied that release based on that doctor's recommendation, even in your system, that they can appeal that decision?
No, really right now, these are discretionary releases that are, that are medical in nature, but they have to meet the fullest extent of the statutory requirements. I ended up doing the reviews on people who were screened. I did those reviews because I knew that I bear responsibility for it, no matter what the circumstances was. And so I made the decisions that were made. And the appeal options, because it is a discretionary program and really a medical program, there is not an appeal unless a physician says, look, the person's medical condition is such, not that they're a risk, but is the medical condition is currently degrading to a point where we think that they would be either better served.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Angela, do you want to say anything in your minute?
So about this, the phone is about to end and I can call back, but the work release part, we're still waiting. Like, they're not even honoring, like, some people are level 2, got a treatment level 2 directive, like for me, in instance, and a lot of us, they're waiting till the last minute to get us into treatment. So we're getting gypped out of our 12 months of work release. They're waiting till the last minute here to get us into treatment, and we're steadily getting denied for work release. So we're not even seeing these women getting to be able to leave here on account of this fact. And then they took the CMR release from a pregnant woman because she went to segregation because she refused to work. Like, these are things that need to be getting addressed. They took a lady's CMR from her because.
Thank you for using GTL.
Commissioner, did you have something you wanted to say there?
I would just say that, there's sometimes in some of these instances more to the story. I would also say that as we look at work release right now, one of the things that's challenging, right? So we can look at CIP, you can look at work release, you can look at a lot of these options. What's happening is COVID is affecting every element of the system, where we have fewer people in CIP. Why? Because we're trying to have social distancing in a dormitory setting. The halfway houses are taking fewer people because they're concerned about having more and more people in the halfway houses because of this of spread. So the implications of this are really across the entire system, and I think that's in part the challenge.
Can people hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. Okay, great. My question to that is, wouldn't it be possible for the DOC to take some funding to provide it for housing so that you can release more people so they have places to go, so you're not only relying on halfway houses to house people and such?
We have people who spend a lot of time working on housing. We have some houses that we lease and operate. We have people working on a whole range of trying to housing options. What we're trying to do is find options for people where they actually have not just housing, but a place to live. In other words, that a a place where that is stable, because I think the housing instability is a major issue for the people that we serve, as you all well know, and for many of them. And we are investing a lot of money in that. I think Curtis's unit got staff who are working on that. There's a lot of money and time and energy and effort spent on trying to find housing options and develop them.
I had a question for you, Chanel. How many housing units do you have in operation currently, total?
I can't tell you exactly how many that we operate. We lease a number of them and operate them all across the state, ISR houses, but then we contract with multiple different halfway houses and that kind of stuff. I don't know how many beds. Curtis, do you have any sense of what the number is?
No, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head the exact number, but as the commissioner alluded to, it's not just the houses that we operate, it's also the partnerships with the, whether it's the halfway houses, whether it's other counties just around treatment providers that are both, that take care of those with dual diagnostics. But I mean, that is one of the number one priorities, is again, not just giving people someplace, to go, but actually making sure that the housing that they go to is one that's going to be in a setting that's conducive toward their success. Have we found the absolute right solution for that? No, because housing is at a premium, particularly, there's also other hurdles. Too, sometimes there's red tape, even with their housing when it's available, where some people have to go to a shelter first. So in essence, they become unstable until they can get into affordable housing. And you also don't want to put someone in a situation where they lose their housing. And then as a result of that, particularly with the decrease in all the treatment providers that are actually giving them accessible treatment, both for mental health and chemical dependency needs, that then puts them in a situation where it's only going to enhance their criminogenic risk factors, and you see them brought further into the system. But I mean, I will echo exactly what you say, and I've presented this to the group before. All ideas are welcome, particularly when it comes to housing options. And we're trying to be creative and thinking about other options, particularly working with different developers. And what does that mean for us to have more stake in the game when it comes to housing? But no, I appreciate the question.
Yeah.
So at this time, you cannot tell me the exact number of how many housing units.
No, but I can get that. I can get that exact number to you. No, I couldn't tell you the exact number for but I can definitely get that number to you. Absolutely.
I would
Thank
you, Curtis. I would just say to both commissioners there, we hear that you're working very hard on this, and also I think we also hear that looking at those numbers and talking to our people that we're not where we need to be. And so we're definitely willing to take you up on that partnership in terms of finding more housing, of being able to be creative to get people out, because you look at that 153 released and that 2,300 that applied, and it's just not, our people need better than that. So we're definitely willing to take you up on that partnership, and let's figure that out, because we know you're working really hard and we know our people need better. So I know Denisha was going to close us up, but Curtis, it sounds like maybe you have something you want to say quick before.
No, I just wanted to make sure I got her name so I can and get contact information so I can get that information over to you. So just make sure I get that before we get off the call.
I have something I also want to address to Mr. Schnell. This is Ms. Jackson again. How is this supposed to be working, like with new inmates that come into the prison here at Shakopee? How are they supposed to be getting quarantined here? Because what I find very unsettling is when the new admissions come in here. I'm in broker right now, and that's where you come in to learn RNO. New admissions come to this building. So when they come in, they're getting quarantined here on a wing for 14 days. And so they had a positive case over here. And how is that? Why is that they're being quarantined over here with general population and not using segregation for them women and having them come into contact with us and possibly having us being exposed to COVID like it was just done on the 20th here in Broker. Why are these women putting us at, why is this happening? We don't understand that.
So I can't answer this specifically. I can tell you that every facility has a intake quarantine protocol that people are that go through it. They stay with a unit at some level. And we are, I'll find out more about it. But I'll have to look into it. I can't answer your questions.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I really appreciate that.
If I could just add to that real quick, just along the lines, just the thought process though around utilizing segregation. I think I just want everyone also just to be mindful of is, and I'm sure you all know this too as well, that the likelihood that increases, particularly when you introduce somebody to a system and then place them directly into a segregate setting. So again, not knowing the inner workings and how the facility is operating, also know that when we think about that, we also have to decide, is that the best option, particularly if we can effectively social distance and quarantine, or rather than introducing someone to the system and placing them directly in segregation when we know that increases the likelihood for suicide and self-harm, particularly within their first 72 hours of being introduced into a system. So I know we're going to continue to exhaust all options, but I also want everyone to be mindful too about some of these things, because we want to make sure we're doing the best thing to put people in the best situation to be safe and not enhancing the potential for them to have self-harm or have some type of injury or tragic accident happen when they get introduced into the system.
Okay, when you're speaking on that, when we were on quarantine, they were still bringing people from out of segregation. When this building was supposed to be quarantined, they were moving general population into a quarantine building. And then on make matters worse, they knew there was a positive case before they moved me over here, knowing I had underlying health conditions. They not only jeopardized my health, they're jeopardizing other people's health when they shouldn't even have been moving us over here when they knew they had a positive case. And Sergeant Stock is the one that does the count over here, and they knew about this, and I asked medical about this.
So this is Michelle Smith, and I will just comment that I will certainly work with the facility and find out what their quarantine and isolation protocols are. So I'll take care of that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Okay, so so this is what we will need from you over this next month. We request, we want outside investigators. We want the CDC, Ombudsman, and Department of Health to go in directly and make recommendations. And also we want them to come back repeatedly to check and make sure the recommendations are being followed. We also want to reduce the population of low risk and medically fragile people. By the end of the month, we need to see results. This can include people in minimum, ICWC program, medically approved with low MNSTAR scores, technical violators of parole, work release under the full extent of the law. So that's what we need.
Yes. We would love some results.
Yes.
And even house arrest, we're willing to even pay for our own fees if we can go on house arrest.
All right. I've got it. We'll take it under advisement. I'm telling you, we're looking at a range of things right now, and I'm not in a position to be able to comment. We will, in terms of the health stuff, we will, I don't know that the CDC is going to come in. They generally are not going to come in, but we can talk to the
Please
health
mute
department.
yourself if you're not talking.
We'll talk to the health department about coming in. I don't know what that looks like. Generally speaking, they do not want people coming in. They don't want me going in. They don't want, we're trying to minimize as much as possible that stuff, but we can certainly talk to them about, about this. I think that as you look, again, I just want to be really clear that what's happening in our facilities, and again, this doesn't impact this, it becomes real when you have people there. But it's heartbreaking for me when I hear that these things are happening, and it's in our hospitals, in our nursing homes, in our prisons, and all these places. And what ends up happening is it does not happen in a vacuum. And so we'll take responsibility for the parts of this that we own and that we bear, and that but I would just say that, look, the level of concern and around the health and well-being stuff, we're dealing with something that we simply don't know how to deal with. And I'm not talking about the DOC, I'm talking about us as a state, as a country. And we're trying to do the best we can. But right now, if you look at our own state, it's not pretty.
But what about the programs that you got where you can release people to make room, to kind of make it a little better? So it doesn't seem like people are using those or even able to use those programs.
I would push back a little bit. I think we have done some of that. I think, our population is 1,500, roughly 1,500 lower than it was in March, at the start of this pandemic. And it's not small. So I would just say that I think we're mindful of that, and have made progress. Again, not by many people's standards, not enough, but we've made progress.
So yeah, maybe it's time to transition off from this, and we definitely are willing to step up and partner with you to try to see how things play across the system. So if there's ways we can understand that, and also with the housing piece in particular, it sounds like we should get hands on deck there. So I assume the housing piece, that would be Commissioner Shanklin. Is that the person we would reach out to about that piece of things?
No.
Okay. So we're now going to switch to the next thing, and commissioners, thank you for being here on evening with us. One place besides the DOC that our people always tell us we need to go to is the legislature, and to look at the legislature and the budget. And so obviously we've had an election. The Senate is still controlled by Republicans. We've also had a pandemic, and that's impacting the budget forecast moving forward. No, the previous one, Bethany. So we just wanted to check in and figure out how to align our goals for our people and with the DOC, because we know we do have some common goals, and we want to make sure that we're kind of pushing on the same thing. So insofar as we can get movement, that we get it. These are some things that we've heard from you before, and maybe there's other things, but I just wanted to check in on. Last time we talked, you mentioned the possibility of an earned time bill, where people in prison could earn release at 40% of their sentence. And I was wondering if there's any updates on that, or if that's still kind of coming and planned down the pipe.
Yeah, so here, just in terms of what that is, I don't know that I said 40, but I think I said 45 or 50, but we should ask, we should go for broke, right? So I would just say this, that this has been our big focus, right? As we look at the next, session, our goal is to do what we're calling it's a person-centered approach, right? To how we do what we do, with earned incentive release options. And so what does that mean? It means that what we want to do is shift the way when people come into the system, there is a comprehensive assessment that looks at everything from vocational, educational, mental health, substance use, family supports, pro-social, any other community supports, the full spectrum of strengths. And what ends up happening is a multidisciplinary team meets with that person, and it comes out of the Mayo Clinic model, and gives them feeds back what they heard from that person through that assessment process. And then using a person-centered process to lift up the voice of the person to identify a plan. What's the plan that is going to address the needs that they have and ultimately reduce risk? When that plan, whatever that plan gets, we would like to be in a position to be able to offer an early release, whether that is 45 or 50%, whatever that is, versus today's 67%. They could be released early. That, as long as they continue to work that plan in supervision, and remember that this plan is not just about their incarceration time, it extends through the whole course of their sentence. And then at the end, as long as they continue to work their plan, and again, there are going to be some ups and downs, we know, and we want to be able to work through that, that ultimately they would be able to have the incentive time that they earned really and cut off the end of their sentence. So in essence, what would happen is their sentence gets reduced. That's the ask. Now, we have a lot of work to do with legislature and so forth to make that happen. But it makes a lot of sense, and most people get it when you compare two people who are going into the prison the same day for the same offense for the same time. One person really invests in themselves. They address the needs that they have. They address the kind of factors that have gotten them in the position that they are, and really recognizing the fact that sometimes it is even just the reality of where, the place they came from, the fact that they're in over-policed communities and those sorts of things. So we want to acknowledge and recognize those realities, and we recognize that by trying to resource that person's needs at a higher level. And ultimately, they are able to earn that early release. We think that this could be done, and because if you compare the two, one person does that, the other person doesn't, and I think many people would say it makes sense for us to provide incentives that people can earn based upon the investment in themselves, their future, and ultimately their safety, their good, and the well-being of the community and their families and so forth. So that's really the model, and we're starting to work on this internally. We're going to be engaging with. I see that, Raj, your question about trauma is would be a part of this, and we'll be again talking with both currently and formerly incarcerated folks to kind of get input into this process. Family members of people who are in victims groups. The full spectrum of people. As we really work to develop this thing, and front end load services. I think we heard in the call that the treatment programming and stuff is right now today back end loaded, and that to us does not really make a lot of sense. So we want to front end load, switch how that stuff gets delivered, and make this happen. So Amy Lauricello, who's on the call today, is Safia's counterpart. Safia is on maternity leave. Will be back next week, and we have this framed up. We're starting to engage with legislators now. We've run this through the governor's office, and are just so really this is probably one of the first outside conversations where I've had with people in terms of what this looks like. But we intend here now to start sitting down with some of the key legislative leaders to say, talk about the appetite and the process for how we engage around this. And we are internally reorganizing our the organizational structure, and part of this is based on budget. That ultimately really refines this focus where there is actually an assistant commissioner who is overseeing how we do programming and transformative programming and what that looks like. We have Assistant Commissioner Brian Collins, who's on the call tonight, who's going to be overseeing this orientation, assessment, and program planning unit, and ultimately that's going to be that work. We ultimately want this to be also built in with this a seamless approach in terms of how community programs, not just supervision, but community programs supplement and support people as they get out, because we know that that's really key and critical. So we're working on a number of initiatives around looking at exploring the possibility of some significant research model on different supervision models that we think would be both highly informative as well as really give us a sense of what creates the most safety and better outcomes for folks. We have a group of our facility staff that have just started a planning process with AMEND. The MEND is the group that's out of the University of California in San Francisco. They're working with the Norwegians. That this is on the Norwegian model of how we operate our facilities and do training. So these are, that stuff is underway. So yes, this is exactly what we're talking about. I'm gonna address some of the budget and warehousing churn stuff if I can, because it all ties together.
Okay, sure.
When we look at the warehousing and the issue of churn, which, as you know, we're concerned about, ultimately, we know that if we can reduce the probation and release violator population dramatically, that becomes key and critical to our budget, this budget issue. And that's also really key to this kind of supervision research and how we deliver those services. So we're highly committed to making a difference at this level. Frankly, we may have to. We don't know exactly what the budget number is going to look like, but suffice it to say, if at 5%, which is what's been bantered around relatively commonly, that's about $63 million for the Department of Corrections. If you add on top of that just some of the base budget costs that we know we have, it's another 30. So we're talking about close to $100 million. Again, the legislature will decide at the end what the cut would have to be. But you're talking about a substantial amount of money. And the one thing that I do not want to do is I do not want our cuts to come at the expense of opportunities for transformation for people, whether that's treatment, cognitive skills stuff, CIP, all of education, all those things that to me really are key. Philosophically, it's a shift from not just what is the role of our prison facilities. The role of prison facilities is to provide for the safe and secure delivery and provision of transformational services. That's their job. When we talk about programming and supervision, it has to be about how do we do a better job of integrating and creating safety outcomes. And I'm not talking about safety from the standpoint of punishment. Let's incarcerate or that's not the good. Incapacitation has not proved to be an effective strategy, as we all know. So let's find ways to better address these problems. So those are the things that right now are key. Some other proposals. There's stuff around jail reforms that we're looking at. Really everything across the board. We really want to fundamentally change the system, and I think it is the combination of these things. We're not taking it's not a one-trick pony deal. We're taking a multifaceted approach to how we try and bring about these changes. But the statutory stuff, the statutory work around this earned incentive options program, that's going to be really key. And that to me is the big lift. We want to codify that, because the more it's codified, it means that you can't have a new commissioner or somebody else come in and unwind it very easily. It'd have to go back through the legislature. So those are the things that we really are working on, and that we will actually be coming to this group with written stuff. These are things, and what input things do you have? Brian Collins is working on that group that are folks that we're going to go out and talk to formerly and currently incarcerated. What we're going to get more data and feedback on the programs we currently offer, what works, what doesn't, what's missing, where are the gaps. We know what some of them are, and we can see it. We can see it in the outcomes. So those are the things we're working on.
Thank you, and love to see the passion behind that, Commissioner. I think that's really great, and we do share a lot of these goals really strongly. So really excited to work on a lot of the stuff you're saying, and we definitely agree that the only humane way to deal with the budget cut is to make sure that we have less people incarcerated and we end unnecessary in the current system incarceration. Just to speak briefly to the earned incentive thing, a couple things from the lobbying cadre that I wanted to pass on from them because they can't be here tonight, is one, just a worry about incentivizing incarceration that otherwise wouldn't happen. So we don't want to sell your program so good that judges think that we should send people to prison for drugs or mental health or, things that, property crimes, things that we don't want people incarcerated for. And that kind of fits with the warehousing and train piece, but just wanting to make sure we're just differentiated on that level. And then also, are you aware of there's a program in Colorado that has a way in which an earned incentive program provides funds for further recidivism reducing programs? And if you haven't, we'd love to connect you to that because it seems like an exciting thing that exists now.
Yeah, we are familiar with them and have had conversations with them, and some of our supervision, the people we're talking with them in the supervision study side, have been working with them.
Wonderful. Well, that's super exciting. Bethany, you want to go to the next one?
Yes.
So just wanted to check in on the Less is More bill. Obviously, you're aware of it, hoping you'll support it in the coming legislature.
Less is more, that's the
technical violations of parole bill.
Yeah, I think we're there. I mean, I think there's going to be some tweaky little things we can work on language wise, but in general, we're in agreement.
Awesome. The second thing is just looking at the budget and how budget shows priorities. We've definitely bumped heads a lot around not having the money to release people to, so not having the housing and not having the money to the housing to release people. So if the strategy to kind of avoid a budget crisis is to make sure people can be released, the people who there is the authority to release or that the law changes to release them, just wanting to make sure that that's showing up in the budget so that we're avoiding that kind of chicken and egg problem, because we can save a lot if we can put money into housing that reduces incarceration.
So I would just say, look, if people, this is the place where people got to show up, because this is going to be ugly for our state. We are looking at some creative options around revenue stuff, because we recognize that there's going to be a lot of priorities, and so I don't disagree, but people got to show up on this one.
What do you mean by show up?
When the legislature is going on, there's going to have to be voice given to what's important and why. Because remember that when resources are going to be, when you're talking about, we know right now, $4.5 billion shortfall, there's going to be a lot of people fighting for the limited resources that exist. And everybody's going into every state agency is going into a reduction mode of between 5 and 10%, probably somewhere in that vicinity. It's going to be really key to make sure that the interests of the broadest range of people are reflected in the budget allocations.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And that's why we do think there is a lot of possibility in the idea of creating more savings by investing in things that are cheaper and safer alternatives to incarceration. And I think housing is a clear example of that. It's cheaper to house someone in the community than in prison. So, and then finally, and we will show up, just to be clear, we will show up for other people in the legislature. And then the final thing is we are looking at the Community Corrections Act in particular, but really trying to figure out how do we disincentivize incarceration? How do we incentivize safer alternatives to incarceration? And so we're looking at the Community Corrections Act, realignment in California, and that's something we'll probably reach back out to you around once we have, like you're saying, things on paper for feedback. But wanted to let you know that that's a thing that's coming, and that we do see some pretty exciting possibilities there, to not have counties just be dumping people on the DOC, and to be creating better situations where people can stay in communities. So excited about that and excited about figuring out some of those things. And with that, I will pass to Sarah.
Hello. Okay, so I think we did talk a little bit already about some of this, red tape. Basically, when someone is released from prison, just by the nature of having the stigma of a felon, they obviously have difficulty finding housing, like we've discussed. They have difficulty finding jobs. I know that we have been vocal that we believe that there's a better solution as it relates to both pre and post reentry. I think that we have been asked to come to you guys with solutions, which we are excited about doing. We're looking forward to working with you and partnering with you on this. However, what we're really asking at this point is, once we do get to some sort of agreed upon solution, can we expect your administration to use its collective power to help us push and make those a reality?
Yeah, I mean, if we have agreement on what they are, and there's opportunities to partner, yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
Do you need the next slide, Sarah?
Yep, you can go ahead. Sure.
Oops, sorry. Oops.
All right, so I know that we had some things kind of lingering from last meeting, so we just wanted to do a quick follow-up. The first thing is, I think that it was brought to your attention that there was one guard within the DOC who created some TikTok videos. They did not shed a very positive light on the DOC, nor did they really present a respectful manner towards those people who are incarcerated as well as their families. And it really became offensive to a lot of individuals that we heard feedback from. I think you're aware. We were just curious as to kind of what steps were taken as it relates to this action.
So I think probably know that it was addressed, and it was investigated. I can't say much more than that because of the laws that around the personnel stuff, but it was addressed directly.
Can you tell us if she's still employed by DOC or not?
Employment status is public. Yeah, that's the person is still employed.
She's still employed.
Just curious, do any of your guards or any staff within the DOC have to do any type of empathy training?
Yeah, that's
no.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I just wanted, this is Tyra, and I just want to be clear that that video was nowhere near anything someone would be taught during harm reduction. And for them to be possibly still working there frightens me.
Me too. I second that. She needs to go.
I agree with that.
Okay. I mean, I know correctional guards are hard to come by, but
your concerns are duly noted, and there's a whole process for how things happen, and I can tell you it was addressed. I respect, trust me, every day I can tell you there have been times I wanted to take actions on things I couldn't, or I lost at different points in the process. And so I will tell you that it was addressed, and that's all I can get into from a legal standpoint.
Thank you.
Thank you. The second thing that I wanted to discuss is the victims designation visitation policy. I know that we talked about this last time. I think that I have spoken with a few of you as it relates to this on a personal perspective, but we, from our last conversation, reached out to the Violence Free Minnesota and really worked with them to come up with what we believe pretty solid recommendation that they have presented to you. The understanding that we heard is that there's still a policy review that has to take place. I'd like to understand your initial reaction as it relates to the recommendation, as well as timelines on when we may see some movement from that policy review or even the policy changes itself.
So yes, we did receive that, and appreciate your work with Violence Free Minnesota and some of the information that was pieced together from a variety of different sources and work. And I will tell you that we are, we're quite supportive of the recommendations. There's a few things that we have to work out, but yes, we're supportive. And Amy has been in contact with the coordinator of that committee, and we'll be moving that stuff forward. But I'm supportive of the recommendation.
Okay, and so do we anticipate? You say we'll be moving that stuff forward. I mean, is that like within weeks or forward within months?
Within a month or so. It's so hard because we're trying to manage a pandemic, and there's just a lot of balls in the air. And so trust me that we would like to do it all and as quickly as we could. We'll get there, and I promise you it will happen.
Hi, Commissioner. I'll just give another little quick piece here. The request from the coalitions also included some requests for information or touch points in places where our victim assistance unit would then also still offer information and services, right? So we're going to repeal the prohibition on the visitation ban, right? But still making sure that folks know what resources are available. So it just takes time to try to put those pieces in place too. In addition to just the redrafting of the policy, it's also making sure our victim assistance unit is in a position where they can actually get those resources and that information to folks who need it.
Sure, I think that's a great point, Amy. I mean, I think that from my personal perspective, and I think that we all agreed throughout conversations that the DOC does in fact have a responsibility to inform victims of all of the services available to them, as well as any potential repercussions and decisions that they are making. However, those victims still have a right to make decisions. So I appreciate that. I know another thing that we wanted to work on similarly to this is kind of how that victim designation works post-release. Is that something that you would be willing to continue this journey with us on?
There's some, that's going to be a different lift, but yeah, we can definitely have conversations about that. It's just, there's a range of factors there, but we can look at that. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Also, last meeting we talked as a follow-up on having someone placed on the visitation committee. I don't think that has had any kind of movement. We have not heard anything. And even in more broader conversations just within our union itself, and recognizing that we come to you with individual policy concerns, is there a potential to maybe have like a stakeholder joint committee review with key stakeholders like unions such as ourselves, coalitions, Violence Free Minnesota? Is that something that you or your administration would consider?
Yeah, it is something that we want to do. It's something that between Safia and Amy, I think that's a goal, is to get to that place. Amy came on not that long before Safia went out. And so what we're trying to do is we wanted to build a capacity to be able to do some of those things around engagement, broader engagement with the community as it relates to policy and other factors going forward.
Okay. So in the interim, do you still plan on placing someone within the visitation committee?
So we plan on, what we said was we talked to Jesse about having, when that committee convenes, to get the input from you to participate in that, and then Violence Free would likely come into that as well. We're trying to figure out exactly how this should work. Do we start to build stakeholder groups, or do we put people in the boatload of different committees that operate within the DOC? Because there's just some logistical challenges around how you do that and how you make sure you get those voices. So that's something that I think that Amy and Safia will be working through in terms of what that looks like on a more regular basis. It's really hard to have when a lot of those committees are meeting some point in time, Monday through Friday between 8 and 4:30, and you have people in the community who want to participate, but it's really not very convenient or realistic for them. So we need to figure out how we're going to do that. But I can tell you that from a visitation policy standpoint, that we want to make sure that input is heard, and the work that you did with Violence Free is very helpful, and will be put in play, and we'd like your voice in that as well.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, David. I think maybe you're wrapping it up. Or Ron.
Okay, so this is the part where I told you this slide would show up again, regarding how do you feel about our requests? I mean, you responded to everything, and thank you for that, but do you feel like this meeting discussed realistic goals for positive change?
So yeah, I mean, look, I think that there's always benefit in these meetings, and the last thing I want to do is come across as, which I can, as defensive or frustrated, and we all feel that. I would just say that, I think there are many of these things that we are working on. I do believe that we are, we have invested. I think we've gone at this in good faith. I think I can see where people would fundamentally disagree with the positions that we've taken or I've taken on things, and I respect that. But I also think that we do have a lot in common, and I think for you all to recognize the fact that you have been influential, and that many of the things that we are doing have been influenced by your voice in these processes. And so I don't want people to feel like nothing ever happens, because it's not true. We have a lot of work to do, and this system cannot be Paul Schnell's or the team that's on this call to unravel every single thing that's happened. This is a big system, and we'll work on it and try to address the things that we can address, and then build hopefully a system that is better and more responsive and fair, and meets people's needs, and helps people see what the opportunity that can come from transformational change, from investment in yourself. That's really where we want to get. None of us could have predicted that a global pandemic would get thrown in the way of this, and unfortunately we are having to work our way through that, and we're doing, frankly, the best we can, and there's a lot of people that are impacted by this, so both in prisons and in our communities, and I just hope that we're all doing our parts individually to minimize risk.
What advice do you have to educate the public?
Responds to, and that's why when I say it's about showing up, the bottom line is that I think collectively, and I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody here, but the touch point times with me or with the people on this call, the policymakers and the people who do this, we have to make it hard for everybody in that system. And there shouldn't be a level of comfort there, that those folks should be listening to these stories and hearing about the challenges that people face. And I think this whole notion of, we're talking about the risk tools that we use, and we know that that those risk tools oftentimes are indicators risk is really reflected by over-policing and under-resourcing and all of those things that have impacted trauma, as Raj pointed out. You know, these are the realities, and yet what our system has done is used punishment to respond to that, as opposed to resources to respond to that. And that's the shift we're trying to get to, and that's what we have to help people understand. And I think building this model that does that begins to help drive that. And we want to change the system to that, and we want to put and empower the community to do that. And that's one of the things, the opportunities that exist with groups like all of you, people like all of you. So I know you're frustrated. I know you feel like we haven't done enough. And I can just tell you that we're trying to do the best we can, and albeit by many people's measure, not enough. But we're committed to continuing the fight, and I would encourage you to do the same.
Okay, so to that end,
I don't mean to cut in, but
no, it's okay. Go.
Thank you. This is Tyra. I just wanted to thank you for those thoughtful words. And as you were speaking, the word in reflection for me, as we're soon to close this out, was rehabilitation. And then I was called to look it up. And I said, well, let me re-identify myself with that word. And so I went to the dictionary, and it said it's a noun. It says rehabilitation is the action of restoring someone to health or normal life through training and therapy after imprisonment, after addiction, after illness. The action of restoring someone to their former privileges or reputation after a period of disfavor. The action of restoring something that has been damaged to its former condition. Why do we have to wait till after? Historical trauma. Here in the state of Minnesota, we have the highest racial disparity of imprisonment of Black and brown people. And I say it all the time, don't get it twisted, because we've got white privilege in there too. We're in this together. And so when you talk about rehabilitation, that's what needs to be happening right now. And I'm so happy to hear that you're looking at the Norwegian style, that you're talking with Colorado, because Washington already went over there and saw what was happening over there, about their open doors, about how prisoners were able to go cook their own food. That's rehabilitation. And so I just wanted to reflect on that word one moment, and I just appreciate you giving me the time to say it. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything to say? Thank you, Tyra. Okay, so Commissioner Schnell, to continue our work together, which you've clearly made it known that we make a great team. Would you be able to meet with us again in about a month from now? We were thinking December 10th.
You're on.
Okay.
I've not said no yet.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. One thing I wanted to bring up is Pepe from Stillwater. He had asked about the availability of vitamins and supplements and protein. We didn't get a chance to hear your answer on that because he said they didn't have any more in the canteen. And I feel like the least we can do is make sure inmates are able to, be healthier with their supplements.
So I think that Michelle's going to look into
Yes.
that.
I was going to check into that.
This is Michelle, and I already sent a text message. They are out of one thing in the canteen. We're going to verify that tomorrow and see what else they have. But there are supplements and there are other things for them to buy. We're going to verify stock tomorrow.
Great, thank you. And then Commissioner Schnell, you were going to talk to Shakopee tomorrow about the masks and.
Yeah, this is Michelle again. I already did that tonight, but yes, we'll take care of it.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so let's see. I just wanted to thank everyone for your 2 something hours of time. And I just threw this quote in here to end the presentation. It is not the prisoners who need reformation. It is the prisons. And we're all working together to work on that. I should say, of course, some of the inmates, there are people who do need you know, help with change. But it like you said, Commissioner Schnell, I mean, people have to start with working on themselves, and all of those resources have been stripped away because of COVID now, and that's not their fault. So we need to make sure we're putting other things in place to help them be able to gain their freedom. We have to get creative. Boot camp is closed, all these things. So we need to make sure that despite the fact that there's a pandemic, that they're getting some services to, you know, just not sit in their cells and drive, you know, just, you know, it's so not healthy for mental health or anything. You know, we're the human beings are social creatures. So does anyone else have anything to say?
Yeah, right now, Bethany, everything you just said, we need that right now. So I mean, it's urgent to me. It's just urgent. And I'm hearing Paul talk about, you know, even when we talk about housing, that's huge. When we say we all got to be at the table, that's huge. You know, we want people to have a place to call home when they leave there. A lot of folks were homeless when they got there. So I'll be happy to work with you, Paul, and I know my colleagues here on Decarcerate feel the same way. You know, even upon releasing, we need to have them in a safe place where they can be too, and support that. Thank you.
I agree.
Anyone else before we wrap it up?
Good night, y'all.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. All the commissioner, deputy commissioner, Michelle, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Stay safe and healthy.
Okay.
Talk to you on December 10th at 6.
Be
All
well. And there was somebody on the line that wanted to reconnect about the housing, and they wanted to get my information. Certainly, please just contact the decarceration link, and we definitely will work with you.
Or you could even put it in the chat, Tyra, for Deputy Commissioner Shanklin. He's the one that wanted that.
Yep. I got you. I'll track you down to get you that information. I'll track you down.
Yeah, even if you need to contact David or anyone else, that's fine.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, just send it to Decarcerate, and we'll spread the news.
All right. You all stay blessed, stay healthy.
Thank
You
you.
too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.